panel discussion would be on extranodal lymphomas. For this panel discussion, I would like to invite the panelists. Can we have the next slide? We have Dr. Dinesh Burani from Rajiv Gandhi Cancer Institute, Delhi. We have Dr. Anil Aribandi from Hyderabad, Dr. Chejian Subhash from Chennai, Dr. Balakrishna Padate from Mumbai, and Dr. Sitaram Anandram from Bangalore. Welcome to all the panelists. So extranodal lymphomas, they constitute around 30% of all non-Hodgkin lymphomas, and unlike other lymphomas, they sometimes do require site-specific strategies for diagnosis or therapy. The definition of extranodal lymphomas continues to remain a bit controversial. The true extranodal lymphomas and the appropriate staging system also remains a little controversial. So moving on to the first case in the panel discussion, can we have the next slide? So we have a 65-year-old renowned endocrinologist in Faridabad. He presented to the emergency with complaints of headache for the last 20 days and seizures involving the left side of the body, one episode for which he was actually brought to the emergency. On careful questioning, his wife revealed that there had been subtle behavioral changes over the preceding 3 months with some irritability and temper tantrums. He has well-controlled hypertension and no other comorbidities. Can we have the next slide? So blood investigations were done to rule out metabolic causes, but then we were dealing with focal seizures, so metabolic causes are slightly unlikely. They were as expected within normal. MRI was done. MRI with contrast was done, which showed a large expansile enhancing mass lesion in the corpus callosum, which was suggestive of either infiltrative high-grade glioblastoma. The other differential was a corpus callosal lymphoma. He was started on steroids by the neurosurgery team before a biopsy was attempted. Can we go on to the next slide? So the patient underwent right parietal craniotomy with tumor excision by the neurosurgery team, and the histopathological examination revealed a diffuse large B-cell lymphoma. He underwent PET-CT on the advice of the medical oncologist with contrast, which did not show any hypermetabolic focus elsewhere in the body. His viral markers were negative, and the diagnosis was primary CNS lymphoma, DLBCL. Can we have the next slide? So what further staging investigations should be done ideally in this patient? And is there a comment on starting steroids before biopsy was attempted? So my question could be, anybody in the panel could take this question. Dr. Salian, please.
Well, yeah. The problem with non-exposure to steroids before biopsy is extremely difficult to convince anybody. A patient who comes in with raised intracranial pressure, with CNS symptoms, this has been a running problem with most of the neurosurgical team and the end users like us, where the things come up as lymphoma. Apart from lymphoma, the CNS malignancies generally have retained their pathology with or without the steroids. So their instinct is to actually give the steroids before they actually take them up for surgery. It makes the surgery so much easy for them to do that. So I don't think we will get any biopsy without steroids from a neurosurgical team, unless this patient comes direct to us, which is very unlikely. So I think we have to live with what we have got. The one thing which we need to make sure that they do is, as soon as they plan for steroids, they need to have a plan for the biopsy. And that's all we can stress there. rather than 5 days or a week of steroids and then biopsying it and making them to neurologically improve. They should have both of them at the same time, which probably is the only one thing which we can use. The smaller amount of steroid exposure they have, the better for us later in the disease treatment, as well as your diagnostic samples. Further investigations, I think an MRI with a gadolinium, which probably is a very good test, and probably as soon as they have, almost all the centers now have a PET CT scan. As soon as a malignancy is suspected, I agree that the CNS disease have a difficult way to interpret for malignancy. To rule out a primary tumor elsewhere in the body, like a PET CT scan, is extremely useful for me. I don't know what others think. Even before a biopsy.
I agree with Dr. Subhash. We should still have educational sessions, try to encourage them to have a biopsy before the steroid. But many times the situation is you cannot avoid the steroid. So I fully agree with them. Investigations, we have to have ophthalmoscopy and testicular examination, apart from MRI and PET scan to rule out the systemic disease and the metabolic investigations.
And interrupt steroids before you did a biopsy. If patient, most of us are aware that we hardly have a patient who's not on steroids when they present to us. So would you interrupt steroids before you attempt the biopsy, or would you continue to do the biopsy or go ahead with the biopsy even though the patient is on steroids?
Dr. Subhash?
Yeah, I mean, if the biopsy is going to be done in the next day or two, it becomes very difficult to give a steroid-free interval before the biopsy. So if there is a plan, I think I would just go ahead and do the biopsy if it can be done tomorrow or the day after tomorrow.
Can we have the next slide, please?
Amrita, the other thing is, there are a couple of investigations we have missed. One is CSF. You have to do CSF for cytology and flow cytometry. And second thing is, definitely I will be doing bone marrow biopsy for all these patients. Again, sometimes we want to rule out secondary lymphomas, Therefore, you should consider doing CSF analysis and bone marrow analysis.
So I think that pretty much completes the entire list of staging investigations which any primary CNS lymphoma should undergo. So we have the list on screen. So this has been covered by all the members of the panel. And in addition to desired treatment, I think we should do a DTPA GFR and an echocardiogram to assess the fitness of the patient for treatment. Can we move on to the next slide, please? So coming to treatment options. So for this particular patient, 65-year-old with well-controlled hypertension, no other comorbidities, who's got a corpus callosum lymphoma. Let's say his echocardiogram is normal with a normal ejection fraction, and his DTPA GFR is 70 ml per meter square per minute. What treatment, or what would be the treatment that you would offer this particular patient?
Dr. Amrita, just before the treatment option, there's one thing from the options which I probably thought was HIV and EBV serology would be extremely useful. Yeah, correct. I thought that probably would be one major ones which we should always look for. I think you have put viral serology, but in specific HIV and probably EBV as well.
Yeah, HIV is definitely going to change your treatment plan, how you think about you're going to treat, particularly considering the possibility of autologous transplant, even though he's 65-year-old and fit. So definitely HIV and EBV, both I would do in addition to all investigations that you have suggested. That's correct.
So, sorry, go on.
Sorry, Subhash, how would EBV change your approach to the patient? I agree with the HIV. Apart from getting some more information with EBV, would that change your management approach?
But, the addition of rituximab and other things are extremely useful with an EBV serology. Anyway, we are going to do, if it's a CD20 positive, we are going to use rituximab, but addition of rituximab probably is extremely useful EBAR or LIP1 or EBV expression on the biopsy.
But Subhash, for all lymphoma patients, we give rituximab.
Yeah, vitamin R is there. Yes, I do.
So there is one more thing to EBV in patients with primary CNS lymphomas is that if the EBV positivity is there, the histology can be slightly different. Particularly, majority of patients of CNS lymphomas are high-grade diffuse large B-cell lymphomas. But in patients who have EBV positivity, there is slightly higher incidence of classic or atypical Burkitt's type of histology in these people. So prognostically, it is relevant in addition to how you treat people, particularly if they are young. So what do you talk to the patients and the relatives? That differs if you have EBV, and histologically if it is different, that diffuse large B-cell lymphoma.
Dr. Sood?
Is he there?
No, I'm here.
So, would you agree with doing an EBV serology on primary CNS lymphoma?
We don't routinely do EBV serology.
It's routine practice.
Well, we don't routinely do it. But I mean, if there's a problem or if we were suspecting something unusual, then we would do EBV serology. But as you know, as you said, I mean,
I presume your pathologists will routinely do EBR and
EBR on the.
I presume.
In case of Hodgkin's, I guess, but non-Hodgkin's, I don't think they do EBR-ish anyway. So I don't think routinely we would do EBV if that's the question. Rituximab obviously would be routinely added anyway. And so when you said the EBV, Subhash, you meant EBV PCR or just checking?
No, the pathology specimen itself, most of them will do.
Oh, you mean EBV on the pathology specimen? Okay.
Yeah, correct. As well as, I mean, serology would be very useful, particularly as Dr. Balakrishna said, be very useful in HIV patients to use it as a surrogate marker for your other pathological diagnosis. But yes.
Yeah.
Bala, without also I'll tell my prognosis with the primary CNS lymphoma is very poor.
I know, at 65 years of age, yes, you are right.
Yeah, go on. Sorry.
So, moving on to the treatment options. So, anybody from the panel, Dr. Burani, what treatment would you offer this 65-year-old doctor who has no other comorbidities apart from hypertension, which is well controlled? He's got a good DTPA GFR, good renal clearance, creatinine clearance, and normal echocardiogram.
We'll prefer a chemotherapy first, or a chemotherapy alone therapy rather than a radiation or a combination. Preferably the chemotherapy first or only chemotherapy. Rituximab will be definitely added. Probably I may not go intensive therapy like Matrix and all. Probably will be more intensive in his age. I mean, I haven't done it, so it's not that it's not recommended. I'm very comfortable with De Angelis. It will be definitely may not be effective as a Matrix, but my preference first will be so methotrexate, high-dose methotrexate-based chemotherapy along with the rituximab. There are 2-3 protocols. There are no head-to-head trials. Probably younger age Matrix kind of a Thiotepa and other combinations. If it's an older age, probably De Angelis kind of a RMDP.
Dr. Anil, would you like to take that question, please? What would you offer this patient?
From my side, I usually prefer high-dose methotrexate at the reduced dose and with addition of rituximab. But instead of radiotherapy, I would prefer some chemotherapy. I will go with more temozolomide and that oral drug rather than radiation, because I find radiation to be more neurotoxicity in this age group.
So you would go more in favor of an MTR kind of protocol in which you combine high-dose methotrexate with rituximab and temozolomide.
And especially with Matrix, usually I've seen very toxic Matrix. Usually I prefer for young patients, but not this age group.
So anybody in favor of dose reduction of Matrix, like can we omit the 4th cytarabine dose or reduce the dose of Thiotepa and still do Matrix in this patient?
I don't know about matrix and other things, but our standard treatment is either high dose methotrexate on its own at 3 to 3.5 gram per meter square, plus obviously rituximab. And any young patients we generally add, if it's a primary CNS lymphoma with no disease elsewhere, I generally add in cytarabine. I don't use thiotepa at all. We simply use methotrexate and cytarabine. Just with rituximab. Most of us have done extremely well with just cytarabine, and the two most potent CNS penetrant drug in our armamentarium for all leukemias and lymphomas is actually cytarabine and methotrexate. And I'm not very comfortable in adding thiotepa into the matrix, but I don't know, personal choice. I'm happy with methotrexate and cytarabine. Cytarabine at 2 gram per meter square.
We have used matrix in a couple of our patients, younger, fitter patients in Medanta, but as pointed out by most members on the panel, I think it's a very intensive regimen and it's not for the old, it's only for the fit and young. And even then, I think
what was the higher age for the matrix has been used in the trial? I'm not aware. So what was the age group of matrix in trial?
I think the cutoff is 7.
So it was a phase 2 trial. Yeah, you're talking about the matrix phase 2 trial, right?
Yeah. What was the upper age?
I think it was in one of the Nordic countries, and the IESLG group did this phase 2 trial, and the matrix protocol was tested. I don't think there was a head-to-head trial, but they capped the age at 60, and they got very good results. But it was a single-arm trial, so because it was not compared to anything, the evidence remains questionable. But if you look at the overall responses, were very good with the matrix protocol, and so even they acknowledged in the trial that it's very difficult and it's a very toxic regime, and that you have to introduce Ara-C gradually. So the first cycle is usually at reduced doses, but adding thiotepa to the whole mix of methotrexate, rituximab, and Ara-C will obviously help and escalate the responses. The only thing is, with the dose of methotrexate, most of us use 3.5 grams, and I think anything less than that is not useful. But if you have eye or CNS disease, you can go up to 8 grams per meter square. But obviously, the toxicity increases, and I wouldn't recommend that in this age group anyway.
But in this age group, a single agent methotrexate along with rituximab is extremely useful, and that's probably is the most important drug. The methotrexate probably is the most important drug in the whole lot of CNS lymphoma. And if you are uncomfortable with any of them, I think single agent methotrexate along with rituximab is probably extremely useful. Dr. Burani, just a quick question. Is there any difference there are people who used to use higher dose of rituximab for better CNS penetration. Is there any evidence which you can think of? Say, some people use up to 750 milligram per meter square. I don't know and how useful it is to have a bigger dose of rituximab for CNS disease.
I think most of the trials are with the higher doses of rituximab. Is there just a penetration? Is the concentrations you achieve is effectively achievable? So, as I'm aware, most of the trials are with the higher dose. Nitin, are you? What I am aware is the higher doses. So,
no, sorry, I missed the question.
How much the lowest dose you can go for the rituximab? And
I think anything less than 3.5 grams is.
No, rituximab. He's talking about.
Oh, rituximab. Oh, I see. Okay.
Usually it's a higher dose.
Rituximab is the standard 375.
500 milligram per meter. You can.
No, you give 375 milligram per meter square for 2 days. Each cycle.
2 doses.
Yeah, 2 doses, yeah. And the other thing is, Subhash, methotrexate single agent, usually the CR rates are less, around 30%. And obviously, when you use matrix, I've used in young patient matrix, they may use cytopenias. And recently, we have transplanted a patient on thiotepa conditioning. And platelet engraftment, it took longer time, around more than 40 days for us.
And I mean, there are quite a few number of people from Yorkshire, and a very popular regime there is called Idaram with idarubicin, which has got a better penetration. But I haven't been able to use Idaram in India at all. And anybody?
I think even Yorkshire had abandoned it by the time we moved on.
All right, fair enough. I didn't know. Okay.
So, can we have the next slide, please? So I think most of the panel members have opined that they would be using a methotrexate-based protocol in combination with an oral drug and rituximab, oral drug like temozolomide. Not everybody. I don't think anybody was in favor of matrix or dose-reduced matrix. And whole brain RT is obviously not a choice for induction for this otherwise fit 65-year-old patient. So how many cycles of immunochemotherapy would we do in this patient? Would we consider him for a transplant? If we do consider him for a transplant, would that have a place to say about how many cycles of immunochemotherapy you would do prior to transplant? So can I ask this question to Dr. Balakrishna, please?
Yeah, so what I have done previously and what we have learned in our training as well is normally we use cytarabine, methotrexate, rituximab combination in different dosages based on their age and acceptability of the doses, etc. And then you complete 2 full cycles of all combinations and then reassess. If there is a response, of course, then you could wait, and particularly at 65 years of age, although he is fit, you could say that if there is a possibility or chance of relapse, then of course at relapse you use thiotepa-based autologous transplant. But I don't use any autologous transplant upfront even at CR in this patient. And the assessment is only after 2 full cycles of both methotrexate, cytarabine and rituximab combinations. I don't know what other people feel about it. And in HIV patients, the story is very different. If you have HIV-associated CNS lymphoma, then of course, think about doing autologous transplant in the first year. There was a trial going on in Royal Free when I was there, and then everyone used to get CR1 autologous transplant with thiotepa condition. So in that setting, apart from that, in a HIV negative setting, the autologous transplant is reserved for relapse.
And if I'm sorry, just to button, say if this is a 30-year-old otherwise fit,
yes,
HIV negative, what's your take on autographs, upfront autographs?
No, I have never learned or done it before, even in very young people. It's a reassessment of response, trying to achieve the CR. If the first line therapy, which is rarely fails, combination of methotrexate, cytarabine, and then maintenance with rituximab. But apart from that, I have not really come across using autologous transplant in CR. I don't know whether there is a trial or any practice anywhere else. Even the rituximab maintenance is little controversial. Some people in the UK won't use it, and some people would say it may or may not have any benefit. I don't think there is any prospective data on that.
Subhash, I mean, usually for my young patient, usually I use 4 cycles of matrix protocol. After 2, we do reassess whether the patient has gone into CR or not. After CR, we try to collect stem cells, and after 4 cycles, I went for transplantation. Especially for this age group, after 2 cycles of your chemotherapy, immunochemotherapy, you can assess with contrast MRI. If patient is in remission, I think for this age group, I think it's better to go for transplantation if it's fit enough after 2 cycles. But for younger patients, after 4 cycles, and there is a trial which showed after consolidation with autologous transplantation, there is a 5-year survival rate of around 85% for this patient.
My only worry is what sort of conditioning you can use for these patients. In
young patients, thiotepa is better.
Particularly if you have already used thiotepa in matrix, if in young patient, what conditioning you would use for doing the autologous?
I think carmustine and thiotepa are the agents which should be used in autologous transplant. Beam is not recommended, and Beam has been found to have inferior outcome. We did do a transplant carmustine thiotepa based for one of our younger patients after 2 cycles of matrix.
Right. I'm really sorry. I haven't done one autograph at all for primary CNS yet, but Carmestin and thiotepa based conditioning, is that what?
Thiotepa
Yes.
Thiotepa, yes, that is correct.
Conditioning regime is recommended.
Anybody else used busulfan at all? No.
No, I
Busulfan
I
is a
think
fairly good CNS.
Beam and Buci is almost sort of similar efficacies in this, but most people have abandoned doing anything apart. If you were to do a transplant for this category of patients, then Carmestin thiotepa is the one.
Okay.
Sure.
No.
So Nitin, you would use autologous transplant in all primary CNS lymphomas
If
at
they were
CR1?
fit, yeah, if they were fit, we would transplant everybody. In fact, this patient also we offered a transplant, but no. So we're going to consolidate him with some other strategy. But we'll probably use high-dose Ara-C. But obviously they don't need sort of consolidation.
And anyone uses rituximab maintenance
No.
in non-transplant eligible patients?
I'll go with some oral alkylator
Sure.
for this age group. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So can we have the next slide, please? So this patient was treated by a very daring hematologist who chose to give matrix with dose reduction of cytarabine and thiotepa.
I know the name of the oncologist.
Daring hematologist.
So despite dose reduction, he was admitted for grade 3 neutropenia and recovered with antibiotics and growth factor support. The family was very apprehensive and was not keen on continuing with chemotherapy. But after a detailed discussion and counseling, the protocol was changed to MTR. He received 2 cycles of the same without any untoward complications. Can we have the next slide, please? So MRI after 2 cycles had shown a complete response, and the family, in view of his fitness, was counseled for about consolidation options and was offered a stem cell harvest in anticipation of an autologous stem cell transplant.
Hematologist is really daring.
They refused the stem cell transplant fearing cytopenias. So now this patient has received 3 cycles of methotrexate based immunochemotherapy, and he has refused a stem cell transplant. The MRI showed a complete response after these 3 cycles of immunochemotherapy. And how would you consolidate this patient? Would you choose chemotherapy for consolidation, or would you choose radiotherapy for consolidation? So what are the consolidation options that are available for this patient? Dr. Dinesh Burani?
We have so far used the De Angelis, MVP. So basically that involves, if you are in CR, is 23.5 gray of radiation and then 2 doses of cytarabine. So far we have done this. And someone who has achieved a CR, they have done well with this. But using a temozolomide or at least 2 doses of cytarabine and temozolomide is fine. There's no one protocol which is being recommended.
So you would use cytarabine 2 doses in this patient and offer temozolomide.
We are doing it the 23.5 gray of radiation followed by 2 cycles of. So that's a part of our De Angelis protocol.
Dr. Sitaram? Dr. Sitaram?
Can you hear me? Yeah. I would probably try and offer him some non-cross-reacting chemotherapy, probably cytarabine and etoposide, or something like R-Divig with carboplatin and ifosfamide, something which has not been exposed to. I think this patient has a lot of apprehension for cytopenias, probably cytarabine and etoposide based consolidation in this gentleman if he's not willing for autologous transplant. That would be my approach.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Serian?
Yeah, we usually use cytarabine, as I said, 2 doses of cytarabine plus or minus 10. That's our usual one.
At what dose, sir? At what dose per meter square?
Cytarabine.
2 grams per meter square or 3 grams?
We use 2 grams. I'm more than happy with 2 grams per meter square. We don't want them. even at this age, 2 grams per meter square is a fairly reasonable dose. We use 2 grams per meter square.
Okay. So can we have the next slide, please? So the consolidation options, as most of the panel has discussed, we have, would anybody offer whole brain RT to this patient, given the fact that he's very apprehensive about cytopenias? In case he says, I do not want any cytopenias, and cytarabine, I am not very keen on taking cytarabine, would we offer whole brain RT?
So this 23.5 gray as a part of a protocol, but otherwise, if you're on the different protocol now.
The toxicity, whole brain radiotherapy toxicity significantly goes up as we grow older. So it's a question of losing your memory or your cytopenia.
Yeah, he's a doctor, so for him, cognitive function would be of prime importance.
Yeah, I think being a very prominent endocrinologist, I think he would prefer his. I mean, there are people who do escape without any major problems, but a substantial majority of the older people do have significant cognitive dysfunction over a period of time with radiotherapy. But as I said, I mean, if he has achieved complete remission, and I can't think of any major benefit of having radiotherapy, but obviously Dr. Burani feels, I mean, but that's right. I mean, the younger people, they tolerate, conversely, whole brain radiotherapy significantly better than the older individuals. So 65 very active practicing endocrinologists, I probably, particularly who have achieved complete remission, I think whole brain radiotherapy, I probably will discuss with them. Yeah.
So I'll agree with you, Dr. Serene. So can we, I think I'm running out of time. We won't have time for the other cases. So let's just finish up this case. Can we have the next slide, please? So we have already discussed all these three options, and I think the patient finally opted for cytarabine, single dose cytarabine. We have used cytarabine etoposide combination in one of our patients, infusional etoposide. But it was a very intense protocol, and the cytopenias were very deep, and unfortunately a patient who did very well with MTR during induction, we lost one of our patients to the combination of cytarabine and etoposide, and since then I don't think we have used it for any of our patients. So I think we have, the team had finally decided to just go ahead with single agent cytarabine 2 cycles for this patient as consolidation. So the last question with this case, is there a role of maintenance in this particular patient? After receiving methotrexate-based induction chemotherapy, getting into a CR, and after consolidating with 2 cycles of cytarabine, would you put him on an oral alkylator for maintenance, or would you just say, that's it, and just come for follow-up?
I mean, for this age group, there are a couple of studies which showed oral alkylator. After giving rituximab and high-dose methotrexate, temozolomide for 1 year has better prognosis. Like the overall survival was around 55% at 2-year survival. Therefore, there are a couple of studies, and the other study showed procarbazine maintenance. But I don't have experience with that. Yeah.
So you would put the patient on temozolomide maintenance for whatever benefit for at least a year?
Yeah.
Okay. And what about follow-up? How frequently would we do an MRI scan, and when is an MRI scan done? Usually at the end of treatment?
Once every 3 months.
What is your practice, sir?
I mean, I don't know.
Sorry?
Usually what we do is usually once in 4 months. Our book says around 4 months. But again, in Indian scenario, you may not be doing that aggressively. I think once in 6 months would be ideal.
Okay. So as per the BSH guidelines, it is recommended to do in the first 2 years, as you rightly said, once every 3 to 4 months. But then financial feasibility should also be taken into consideration. So I don't think I have time for discussing the second and the third cases. The third case was meant to be a teaser, but unfortunately we do not have time. And I think, Dr. Sood, should I end here?
Yes, please. I think we've run out of time, and I want to thank all the panel members for a very lively discussion, and thank you, Amrita, for
thank you, Nitin.
Thank
you.
Thank you. So thank you for everybody for their attention.